This Pitch Breakfast video is brought to you by Spangler and Agins.
So I'm a team of one. I am a solo founder with my new product, Inline. So Inline is an easy way to create, edit, and share and collaborate on designs in the cloud. So essentially an online version of Illustrator or an online version of Sketch or an online version of Photoshop. So a little bit about me. Name again is Adam Howell. I've been in Charlotte for several years, and I've been a designer for several companies in town. And I realized while I was working on this product that I have now an illustrious decade-long history of working on collaborative web apps. In 2006, a product I worked on with a startup called JotSpot was purchased by Google. And in my time at Google, I worked on a collaborative website creation tool called Google Sites, as well as Gmail and what is now called Google Slides, what was then called Google Presentations. And then in 2009, my business partner, Jim Van Fleet, and I created a company called Moxup, which we sold in 2012 to who is now the industry leader in the space of collaborative design tools and vision. So the desktop design space has been the same for around 25 to 30 years now with the creation of Illustrator and Photoshop. So unlike every other piece of business software, spreadsheets, word processors, everything else has moved to a collaborative web platform, and desktop design software has stayed on the desktop. An entire industry has grown around trying to tack on collaborative features to Photoshop and Illustrator and Sketch, but those tools are still installed on your hard drive and have no collaborative aspects to them. So that's the first problem for the current state of desktop software. Problem number two is the software is expensive and complex. A normal person comes into a fresh install of Photoshop, they're presented with over 100 buttons and widgets and doodads and drop-downs and labels. And they have no idea what those things mean. So a non-designer has no idea where to start when they are trying to do even the simplest updates of their simplest graphics. This is an example of a blog post I saw just the other day. 4 easy ways to recolor icons, which changing the color of an icon should be the easiest possible thing you could do. And the 4 easy ways are 2 professional design tools, Photoshop and Sketch, PowerPoint, which is not a design tool, and Preview, which is Mac only and usually used for previewing images. So those were the 4 easiest ways they could think of to change the color of an icon, which is the very beginning of what you can do to edit a graphic. So there's an opportunity here. Now that we have better modern web browsers, we have newly available design APIs, which I'll talk about in a second, and a simplification of the modern design aesthetic thanks to Google and iOS 7, iOS 8. It's now possible to create professional designs in the browser. And when I say design APIs, projects like the Noun project, they have 100,000 editable graphics available through their API. You can change the color, you can change the shape, you can change the size just by making a few API calls. Google has over 600 open source web fonts that are totally free. They're not all great, but they're pretty good. Opportunity number 2 is a hosted web app has a lot of advantages over the installed status quo of Photoshop and Illustrator. You can send an invite link to someone. They don't have to spend 30 minutes installing and going through Creative Cloud and all the hoops that you have to do to install Adobe and Sketch software. And since I like to show and not tell, this is a quick, hopefully it's going to work, quick video demo. I'll talk over some of the features while this plays. This is the working prototype of Inline. Here I have created a new project. I'm going to rename it Smooth Movers Inc., which is a client that I am working with, creating a new design. And Inline has all your basic shape tools, rectangle, circle, star, line. So here is an example of a rectangle where you can change the background color and the border color, size and the shape. And one of the things that Inline has integrated with it that Photoshop and Illustrator don't are a whole suite of icons that are 100% editable. So anything from clipboards to pins to storefronts to tags, these are all 100% editable vector graphics, which means you can change their size, change their shape. They're always 100% crisp in every device at every size. So here's an example of me using this truck, changing the color from black to white. And then with the integration of the Google Web Fonts, I have dozens of web fonts that I can use without needing to have those installed on my machine or installed on the machine of someone that I share the design with. So here's an example of me changing the size and the color of the Smooth Movers Inc. tagline. So that's just a few of the features. Oh, am I done?
Yeah. We'll turn it over to the feedback.
All right. Well, we got the video in.
You can walk them through as you do that part.
All right.
Okay, I have a question. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I guess my overarching question is, what do you want from us? I mean,
Yeah.
So I guess that maybe you ran out of time, but it's not clear to me what you're pitching.
Yeah.
Are you looking for a job? Are you looking for investors? Are you looking for customers?
I'm looking for feedback at this point.
But feedback
for
on
stuff
your
like this?
business or feedback on the...
Yeah, for feedback on the business model. So I believe that the availability of a design tool like this for small and medium-sized businesses is the first easy inroad to getting it installed and the potential for having paying customers. But I also think that large design teams, corporations, and even freelancers working with clients will be interested in having a tool that they can share with a client and get their feedback inside the same tool that they are actually creating the designs in. Not to mention having one less or fewer apps they have to worry about in their daily workflow.
So I think it's, when I always look at an idea or startup, you ask yourself the question, is this going to happen? And the great thing about what you're running down here is it is going to happen, right? And
Right.
I'm sure it's already happening to some degree with other competitors out there. It's a huge market.
Right.
It's a need that is out there, and with the explosion in collaborative hubs, it's going to happen, right? So the question is, who's going to be there?
Right.
Not necessarily first. I really don't believe in the whole first mover advantage, especially in the digital space. And
Yeah.
Google is probably the poster child of that,
Right.
with 6 or 8 search engines ahead of them. So you've got something that's going to happen, right? So I think what you have to ask yourself is, you familiar with Slack?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Slack has taken off like crazy, and it's
Right.
a huge collaborative hub for developers. Why did Slack take off, right? And I don't know if you got the answer to that or not, but why does how do you make Inline take off like
Right.
Slack took off?
So Slack did a 3 to 6 month free preview release. They didn't call it a beta, they called it a preview release because they wanted people to think that it was more baked than it actually was. And that's my strategy here. I obviously didn't, I rambled too much in the beginning.
Yeah.
But so as of today, the roadmap for Inline is the website is now live taking email addresses for early signups. In the next 45 days, invites will be sent to those email addresses. Those will be free accounts, beta testers essentially. And I've been doing a lot of customer development ahead of this point. Less of this, more designing and developing, but making sure that the main features that it's going forward with are ones that will resonate as much as possible with me doing it myself now. And so in the next 45 days, getting more of that feedback and then starting to charge customers as I've made changes and tweaks based off all that feedback.
Will it be a freemium model, or is it just a...
It's freemium model. So that's, it's very important for when you invite a client with a link that they can sign up.
Freemium forever, or just a limited?
There will always be a free account for those invites that you send out to clients who are never going to pay to be able to log in and view whatever designs you're sharing with them.
Right.
So that's one aspect of it that I think is integral to not only I think that any web app that has an email address and a login is only so viral, but there is virality in the idea of sending out a link to someone and they use this for the business that you're doing with them. So a client and a freelancer is a great example of that. So that will always be free for the client unless they want to start creating projects themselves.
So I think it's interesting. So I use Illustrator and Photoshop, and they're very complicated. They're great tools, but they're not for everyday user. So
Right.
a business consumer type kind of user, I think there's an application for this. Anytime I look at something like this, my number one question is, all right, so it may be the best thing in the whole world. How do you get people to know about it?
Right.
Typically it's VC-backed companies that can afford to seed the market with a tremendous amount of advertising hype, sizzle and everything else. If you don't have that kind of capital behind you, how do you get people to know about it? How do you talk about the barriers of entry? Because if you do start to cause a little bit of a splash, then why doesn't Adobe Creative Cloud actually put better cloud tools and put better kind of online community stuff around their tools? So, once you prove out a market, does somebody else come in and go, hey, that was an awesome idea, we'll just go ahead and do that, because we have the embedded market. So, and then whenever I hear freemium, it's back to the same question, which is funding, because what's the conversion, what's the revenue model, how does this company actually become a company?
And so the biggest incentive that I have right now for people upgrading is the integration with the Noun project. So that's 100,000 essentially editable designs and graphics that are searchable and at the user's fingertip the second they start paying. And before that, it's 500 or so free icons that they can get a taste with. So the main upsell right now will first be basically a design database, and second will be templates, and potentially down the road there's other avenues. I think integration with Typekit, which is Adobe's font typography service, integration with MailChimp for adding graphics to your emails before you send them out, integration with Squarespace for adding graphics to your website easily. They have photo tools and photo editing tools now. They don't have Illustrator-like capabilities of creating icons and iconography like this.
And just kind of building on Richard's comments, are you looking for investors? Is this part of your pitch?
As of today, I'm not.
Okay.
So one of the reasons I wanted to do this was with Gemini's project, it always stayed a side project. And the company that bought us was the company that had VC funding and worked on it 100% of the time. And so putting myself out there with this right now, when it might be a little premature, is basically me wanting to test the waters to make sure if there's a there there, that doesn't happen this time around. So if I would love nothing more than to work on this full time. But in the first picture you saw, it's me and my 3 kids going down our driveway. So the realities of that are as such that I can't just go ahead and start working on this self-funded today. So right now, as there is no competition, direct competition right now, I could potentially bide my time and continue working on the side. But if it does catch on, which would be great, then there's always that potential of another Envision seeing that and steamrolling it, which I want to guard against if at all possible.
Do you have any insight? I'm very familiar with the freemium model. The freemium model. Do you have any insight though on what the conversions would be here from freemium to premium? I don't. So one of the reasons I'm pricing it at the starting price would be $29, because I made the mistake of $9 and $19 in the past. And the idea here would be, this is not just a design creation tool. It is essentially an iStock photo integrated into your design creation tool, because you have access to search that database of designs, as well as the collaboration features, which are now extra apps that people have to pay for on top of Photoshop and Illustrator. So I would pay what is more or less, especially in this space, a premium, $29 a month for the starter would be expensive to some, but it'd only go up from there to the team package, where they get special treatment as far as inviting people, all one sign in if they want it, all one bill at the end of the month, et cetera, et cetera. So I would do my best to have a premium pricing model, but that conversion rate, I don't know. I feel like the vector icons and the vector designs integrated in the tool is a big selling point. And if that proved itself to be true, then I would do more of that. Free accounts would only get a taste of that, and paid accounts would get a lot of the tools that are there to help people who are not designers, make it easier for them to create
decent designs.
Are those just open source files, or do you own the IP to any of that stuff?
So in the back end, one of the things I didn't talk about was it's SVG files, which is basically HTML for graphics. So it's all SVG in the background.
I'm just going to make one last comment. If you feel like you have something here, I would really encourage you to envision the end game of what it would take if you wanted to have a big company, and think it through. Because if you stay in like lukewarm phase,
right.
You're not going to win the market that way. So even if you couldn't go for it 100% right now, just envision what it would take in terms of people and money, and give it that possibility.
Yeah.
Kind of a somewhat similar tangent, parallel comment. I would encourage you to think of, who would be your strategic buyer on this business, because this is going to happen. There's no question it's going to happen. So is it GoDaddy? Is it Web.com? Is it no? But
right? Yeah, I know.
Who is
Squarespace?
So it's going to happen, right? And like Richard said earlier, the problem is those guys. I'm sure it's already on the roadmap. This is, all due respect, this is a great idea, but
right.
I'm sure there are other people thinking about it. So if they get excited about it, they're going to go throw 30 developers at it and say, let's get this thing done in 90 days.
Right.
And so you got to think about who your strategic buyer is, and go, if you're going to do it, go fast and then position yourself for sale. Because I don't think this is one where you're going to ride this for 5 or 7 or 8 years and build a really big company and then sell it. I think this is a great application, and you're going to build it, and then you got to sell it fairly quickly before the other folks say, let's go put 30 developers on it.
Yeah.
That's my 2 cents.
That's right.
And that's our time.
All right.
Thanks, Lynn.